Hi friends, we are discussing about taxation and tax saving in series of video. In this part 2, we are going to discuss the history of taxation in India. Welcome to our channel Stocks in Silence. Thirukkural, shortly the Kural, written by Thiruvallur. It is a classic Tamil language text consisting of 1330 short couplets. Each couplet is made up of 7 words. It consists 3 parts which aphoristic teaching on virtue, wealth and love. Based on historical prediction, his time period might be 400 BCE or before that, but not later than 400 BCE. According to Harvard University, Tamil is the oldest living language in this planet. So, it is better to read the couplet in Tamil. வேலொடு நின்றான் இடுவென்றது போலும் கோலொடு நின்றான் இரவு. It means that the person who is ruling should not collect money or revenue from people. If he collect revenue, such activity is equivalent to highway robbery. The robber who stands with a weapon in hand and says, "Give up your wealth." So simply we can understand that he criticized the tax collection during that period. This is evidence that tax collection was there in ancient India, and it might be in different forms, whether it may be land tax or corpse tax. Next, Mauryan Dynasty was the oldest dynasty in North India in the period of 375 BCE to 185 BCE, founded by Chandragupta Maurya, and he was assisted by Chanakya to expand his empire. Chanakya was an ancient Indian polymath who was active as teacher, author, strategist, philosopher, economist, jurist and royal advisor. So Chanakya is author of book called Ardhasashtra. He said in his book Ardhasashtra in chapter 1 part 8, Kosha Moola Danda, which means revenue is the backbone of administration. Moreover, he explained that how the tax collection should be in another book, Ribu Vashishta. A tax collector should collect taxes from a taxpayer just like a bee collects honey from a flower. Another dynasty ruled from South India called Chola Dynasty, one of the longest ruling dynasties in the world history. The period of dynasty was from 300 BCE to 1279 CE. It was the biggest dynasty who were captured almost many parts of India. Under the Chola Dynasty, there were around 400 different types of taxes, from which vetti, that is a name they called tax for forced labors, and one more is kadamai, that's a name for land revenue. These are the most common taxes during that period. The land revenue was the main source of income of Chola government. A proper land survey was made. Lands were classified as taxable land and non-taxable land. Generally, 1/6 of the land yields was collected as a tax, either in cash or in kind, or sometimes both according to convenience of the farmers. We have seen the taxation in the period of before Christ. We can able to see the taxation in the period of 4th and 5th century also. Evidence were found in text written by Kalidas, who was a classical Sanskrit author, and he is often considered India's greatest poet and playwright. He talks about taxation in his book Raghuvanshi. I will read in Hindi. जिस प्रकार से सूर्य ज़मीन से नमी को सोख कर इसे कई हजार गुना करके वापस कर देता है, ठीक उसी प्रकार से राजा अपनी प्रजा से करों की वसूली करके इसे अपनी प्रजा की भलाई पर ही व्यय कर देता है. Wow, nicely narrated. It means that collected tax from people should be given back to them in thousandfold, the way the sun draws moisture from earth and then it gives back to earth in thousandfold as a rain. Well, we understand the existence of taxation in 5th century also. Same way, many evidences were found in the form of inscriptions on stones. Those are all can be seen even today either as a broken stone or in the walls of temples in South India, which were published in the newspaper The Hindu. Those inscriptions speaks about taxation system in India around 14th century. So in end of the 14th century or the starting period of the 15th century, Sultanate dynasty ruled and then 15th century Mughals were ruled in India. Main Mughals in those period of 1526 to 1707. It starts from Babur and then Humayun and then Akbar, then Jahangir, after that Shah Jahan, then Aurangzeb. There were many types of tax system at that period. Land tax called Iqta, tax on non-Muslims called Jizya, and very minimum tax on Muslims called Zakat. The important point to be noted here is that the taxation was there based on religious at the time. Tax on corpse called Zabti, tax during war called Khams tax. After the period of Mughals, British started to capture many parts of India slowly. We should mention here one of the brave queen in 18th century. Her name is Rani Velu Nachiyar. She was the first Indian queen to start war with the East India Company in India. She refused to pay tax to British. So, on 25th June 1772, her husband was killed by British forces. Then Velu Nachiyar ran away from Sivaganga, where she lived as a fugitive, and sought the help from Hyder Ali. Hyder Ali helped her with 5,000 soldiers and modern arms. After 8 years of planning, along with the support of many others like Tipu Sultan, Marudhu brothers, she fought with the British. After her death, one more refusal for tax came from Ramanathapuram to British by Veerabandya Kattapamman. He also hanged by British. Finally, Marudhu brothers also hanged by British. So here what we are understanding is taxation was behind the death of these great warriors. When we talk about taxation in India, we cannot ignore breast tax. In Malayalam, we called it a Mula Karam. This breast tax was head tax imposed on women in Nadars community, Ulavars and other lower caste communities by the kingdom of Travancore. At present, it is in Kerala. They were expected to pay the tax to cover the breast in public place. This tax was not imposed on higher caste women. The lower caste men also had to pay a similar type of tax called Tala Karam, that is the tax for mustaq. So the man or woman, man he cannot keep mustaq in public place. If woman, she cannot cover her breast in public place. So the village legend Nangeli is a woman who lived in the early 19th century at Cherthala in the state of Travancore and supposedly cut off her breast in an effort to protest against the caste-based breast tax. So finally British government involved and ruled out this breast tax, and finally lower caste women in the Travancore were granted to right to cover their breasts. So in Western history, Lady Godiva ride naked to reduce the tax in 11th century. She removed her cloth, reduced the tax. But in India, even in 19th century, women, especially lower caste women, were taxed to cover their breast. So we have seen such interesting incidents in part 1, how the tax system was in Western world. If you have not seen, I have given the link in description, please visit. I hope that tax on salt is familiar to this generation. Gandhi opposed the salt tax and started the Dandi March. The march spanned 239 miles, that is 385 kilometers from Sabarmati Ashram to Dandi, which was called Navsari at the time. Now it is in Gujarat. Growing numbers of Indians joined them along the way. When Gandhi broke the British Raj salt laws at 8:30 am on 6th April 1930, it sparked the large-scale acts of civil disobedience against the salt laws by millions of Indians. During the period of British, Sir James Wilson, who was the British civil servant in British India, to fill the treasury, the first income tax was introduced in February 1860. The act received the assent of the Governor General on 24th July 1860 and came into effect immediately. He introduced 3 kinds of taxes: income tax, license tax and tobacco duty. This is the first income tax in India. Tax was introduced to meet losses sustained by government on account of the military mutiny of 1857. So in independent India, the first finance minister was R.K. Shanmugam Chetty. He was born in Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu in 1892 and studied at Madras Christian College and Madras Law College. Different taxes were announced in budget in November 26, 1947. So after independence, India worked a lot to reform the taxation system. Economist Raja Jesudas Chellaya was one of the key persons to reform the taxation system in India. He worked as chief of the Fiscal Analysis Division. He is often referred to as father of tax reforms. So this is an additional news. In independent India, Morarji Desai holds the record of presenting the most number of budgets in the history of country. He had presented 10 budgets during his stint as finance minister from the period of 1962 to 1969, followed by Mr. P. Chidambaram 9 times, then Mr. Pranab Mukherjee 8 times, then Mr. Yashwant Sinha 8 times, then lastly Dr. Manmohan Singh 6 times. This is just additional information to understand how many people involved in budgets and who is the most presented in this country. So well, we see now the chronological order of different tax systems which were introduced in different years. There are many taxes from 1773 to 2017. Start from 1773 land revenue tax, then 1860 income tax, then 1914 motor vehicle tax, then 1922 entertainment tax, 1956 sales tax, 1956 expenditure tax, 58 gift tax, 1961 corporation tax, again same income tax on 1961, then 2 more VAT in 1977 and 1986, then 1994 service tax, 2003 another VAT, 2005 fringe benefit tax, 2005 tribunal tax, and finally 2017 the GST was introduced. So it is always good to know the history, because history taught to us many things. So we have understood how the taxation was there in ancient India and how the taxation system in modern India. So we have started with the history of global taxation and published as a part 1. Today we have seen the history of taxation in India as part 2. Our mission is to understand the tax system and what are the different ways to get exemption as per the different section in income tax. In upcoming parts, we straight away discuss each section and we'll see the option for investments. I hope you like this video. If you like this video, please subscribe and forward to your friends and relatives. Thank you for your time. Bye bye. Take care.